Hey everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. I'm Josh, and that is Caleb, and we have a lot to talk about today. We are T-minus like a few weeks away from football, less than 3 now, and we have a lot to talk about today. We're going over the breakout players for Husker Football this year and going through some of the guys that we are most excited about seeing in the development for them heading into this year. Man, it's going to be a blast. Caleb, how you doing?
Very excited.
Yeah.
As it sits, we're like Quincy Anunua, 18 days away from Husker Football.
There you go.
Very exciting. Yeah, like you said, less than 3 weeks. And it's kind of fun having a week 0 game. It's definitely been a minute. So I'm definitely excited that we get this sooner rather than later, that when that first Saturday of football rolls around, we get to be playing in it.
Yeah, man.
Very
a
excited.
Conference game too, so there's a lot on the line. Obviously, we're going to talk about it all. And like we said, we're going to be going through some of the most exciting players on the year that we're looking forward to seeing kind of break out this year. And maybe planting our flag on some of the guys that we really believe in heading into their careers, and maybe some guys, overall, just guys who we're excited about. So without further ado, I think we can start on the defensive side of the ball and talk about some of those guys, since it is kind of the more established group of players for this team. Obviously, we're returning the majority of our stars on the defensive side. So there aren't as many like potential massive breakouts maybe on this side of the ball. But Caleb, what do you have in mind for some of the guys that you're excited about on this side of the ball?
One of the least established places in that defensive side is probably the linebacking core that maybe has the most room for surprise and shock for us.
I mean, replacing Will Honus is kind of the key there. So really, especially the inside linebackers, but really, as a whole too, with the development of that group. I agree with you.
There's definitely a lot of room, and I think that's something that Josh and I are both looking for this year in our linebackers is a pass rush, and I think that's something that Luke Reimer definitely could bring for Nebraska this year, and it's definitely something our defensive side really needs.
Right. I mean, last year with Reimer, we saw the flashes of it already. So maybe some Nebraska fans would already say that he did break out, considering he kind of carved himself a pretty nice role in the second half of the year. On the defensive side and the linebacking core. But I think what Caleb and I both are excited about is the upside, the potential for Reimer as a legit mainstay on this defense, and a guy that could be like a legit talent in the Big Ten for Nebraska. As a guy like Caleb really highlighted, the pass rush and his ability to get to the quarterback is something that we're both really excited about. And we saw that last year, in those Northwestern game, the Minnesota game, especially later in the year. This is now going to be his 3rd year in the program. And I'm really excited about the potential that he has. I mean, we saw the flashes of athleticism and really creating or getting those tackles in open space last year was really impressive as a whole. And I think if we can see that next step forward, Reimer's a guy that he can really break out and be a mainstay talent for this team over the coming few years. I'm just excited about him. Really, really excited about him.
Yeah, I definitely couldn't agree more. Another dude that we're pretty excited about too is that 5-star transfer, Tyreek Johnson from Ohio State. Our secondary is really solidified, so there's not really much room to have a lot of breakouts because most of these guys have been there for so long.
Right, replacing DiCaprio Bootle would be the one guy, and so
exactly.
It would come down to Tyreek Johnson. It would come down to like Quentin Newsome, potentially Braxton Clark, as those 3 guys. Right now, it's assumed that Quentin Newsome will be the guy as the starter, but like we said, Tyreek Johnson is really interesting for sure.
Yeah, he played with Deontay Williams too in high school, which is a fun matchup there. They already have some on-field chemistry and understand each other a little bit.
Which is why he came in the first place here.
Exactly, and he was at Ohio State for 3 seasons, but still has 3 years of eligibility left with the whole COVID craze, which is nuts.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was ranked the 17th best defensive player on Ohio State by Pro Football Focus. So obviously, there wasn't that much room, but he did get to see some sort of the field for Ohio State in the same light. He played 77 snaps from last year, and they mostly came against Rutgers and MSU. Obviously, they were winning big in those games, but he did get to see the field.
Right. I mean, he had a pretty nice game against MSU too. I went back and watched some of his plays too from that game. Maybe not in the first half of the year. We might not see it for that first half. But as we get through the year, I think we're going to see him out there once in a while. The coach is probably going to see what they have with a guy like him and the natural athletic talent for a 5-star coming out of high school like that Ohio State guy who spent 3 years in Ohio State's program. So I'm really excited to see what Tyreek could be by the end of the year, what that could look like heading into the following year as well. So he's more of like a late season sleeper, a late season breakout type guy, but one guy that we definitely had to mention as a player who has the potential to break out and a guy that we're both excited to see what he can bring to the table throughout the year too. So the next guy on the list as well would be down to the linebackers again, would be a player who's been around the field a little bit. That's Feldarius Payne. Starting out, of course, his time in Nebraska as a pass rusher, the defensive end, but now we're seeing a move really transitioning to a linebacker spot, outside linebacker. And last year he was basically used in some interesting packages where we played some 4 down linemen and a little bit of multiple D, running some 4-3 as well. And so I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table this year, where in the second half of the year, he graded out pretty well as a pass rusher and did some pretty good things.
I agree. He really developed a lot. It'll be interesting to see how well he can move in a linebacker position. Sharing that weight. Obviously, we know he can do some good things, though. And my only question is speed. But if that's the case where he can stay up to speed for a linebacker's position, I think this is another really exciting guy, again, for that pass rushing position that we still desperately need from our linebackers.
Definitely.
I think that's going to really be a place where Feldarius could really fit in for those guys. Yeah, I also think Feldarius will be really interesting in those multiple defense setups. I think he can come on and kind of be that 4-3 edge rusher for us. And I kind of expect to see him in some blitzing packages for Nebraska this year. And I think we can mask some things with him being kind of in the linebacker spot. Also kind of in some fun blitz packages. I really think Feldarius Payne could really shine this year and really be a big light for the Husker defense.
Again, last year we teased that kind of like messing with some multiple D packages with the 4-3, and then Shenander in a press conference recently mentioned that they're excited to work on even maybe some potential 5-man fronts as well. So we could really see a lot more multiple D this year potentially. And just like you use like JoJo Domann in the past as a nickel back in those nickel packages, you might be able to see Feldarius come in as kind of like our fourth pass rusher, another down lineman, and mix and match him around the field as kind of that versatile pass rusher that we can use in different situations. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I mean, what do you think the upside for Feldarius is? Do you see him as a potential NFL talent? Like, I think where both of us see Reimer and maybe Tyreek Johnson as well as the potential to be NFL talents. Do you think Feldarius can be that good, or is he more of that fringe type of NFL guy?
With the position where he's at right now and having to switch, I definitely feel like it'd definitely be a tough road to the NFL for him when he is kind of that hybrid guy. Although, I mean, let's see how he does in this position this year in the linebacker. Maybe he can develop into a really nice middle linebacker again if the speed is there for him.
Yeah, that's the thing.
He definitely have a big middle linebacker size body. I definitely think the 3-4 could help him and him playing both sides. It really depends on how much can he keep the weight down and how fast is he. I think is really going to be the keys for him.
It doesn't, at least last year, didn't feel like we saw that like top end speed that you'd want to see from like an edge rusher to get around the edge and swim towards the outside. Like those types of things.
He was definitely a bull rush type of guy.
Yeah. So, you'd want to see that develop this year and then see flashes of that. And then you're like, okay, then maybe there is something here for some massive upside as a pass rusher heading into like his senior year next year, whatever. So he's a guy that I'm really excited to see kind of develop. And maybe we see him break out as like a more, game to game type guy that we see more often, snap to snap. So the other two guys we want to talk about was kind of that inside linebacker position, and replacing Will Honas is obviously the biggest question mark on the year about which guy is going to really step up and be that guy. So the two guys that at this point are the biggest debates about how are they going to play out on the inside would be Nick Henrich and Chris Kolarevich, the transfer from Northern Iowa. So where are you at with these guys, and which guy do you kind of give the advantage as the breakout potential this season?
Henrich had some really, really good tackles last year, and I thought definitely towards the end of the season he shined pretty bright. The Minnesota game, Football Focus ranked him at 71.8 in that game, and I think he played really well. I remember a couple of really solid run stop tackles on Ibrahim where I was like, wow, that was a really nice play by him. I think that can definitely be. I think he can fit that role really well this year. I'm leaning toward Henrich just because, Chris Kolarevich, he's from Northern Iowa. Can he make it's a big, that's a huge jump. That's a huge gap jump. Even though he was ranked third on the Huskers Performance Index for physical prowess, which is pretty impressive. I'll still give it to Henrich, but
that's the thing. I mean, Kolarevich at least has the athletic upside to really make some big time plays. But again, he seems like a guy that would make more sense to have in the middle of the year breaking out and later. But with Henrich, I mean, he's so young, and that definitely plays to his advantage there, where we saw him really develop at the end of last year and played some really good football in those last few games. And so it's kind of hard to decipher exactly where the upside sits for Henrich, but like there is legit upside for him to be a great player. We saw him make some great plays in the open field. And like you said, tackling was really solid throughout last year. And so if we can have him develop some of those pass rushing techniques and really develop as a in pass coverage, which seemed to be a pretty big weakness of his last year, then suddenly you're like, okay, then we have something here as a guy who can be a mainstay at inside linebacker. But right now, there's still some question marks, and I think that's where we have to see exactly how that fits out with both those guys. But I mean, I am intrigued by the athletic upside of Kolarek in the long term, and so
it is fascinating.
That's where I'm like, okay, maybe we can make something happen with that guy. So as a whole on the defensive side, I think both of us are most excited about the long-term upside of Reimer in that defensive core. But
agreed,
and then the four other guys with Tyreek Johnson, Feldarius Payne, Henrich, and Kolarek are all guys you got to keep your eye on as potential big-time contributors this year that could really take that step up. I mean, besides that, the few other shots in the dark are guys that could definitely be contributors, but we maybe not be as like high on. Would be like a lot of the defensive line guys like Damian Daniels, Ty Robinson, those types of guys that made big-time contributions last year and showed some flashes. But maybe we haven't bought into like the real upside of them as players yet.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like maybe Daniels, just because his brother as well, was an NFL talent. But it wouldn't be like a high round draft pick type deal. Although I love his effort on the field. That's definitely something to highlight.
Right. He has the side to be good. He has the size to be great too. And like a guy like Jordan Riley as well could be in that category too.
Yeah, I mean, I think Henrich definitely. Out of those other guys we listed besides Reimer, does have some, possibility of that NFL potential just because he is so young. You said it though, pass protection was really bad out of him while he was a really good run stopper. But I think our whole inside linebackers as a whole have kind of been not great at protecting any sort of pass. When we do choose to go into zone, that I feel like they get lost in the sauce like the whole time. That's
fair. So those are kind of the guys we're really looking for and excited to watch for sure on the defensive side. So now heading over to the offense, there's a lot of potential options here, obviously, with so much turnover on the offensive side. We wanted to obviously get the two big names out of the way. I mean, Samori Toure and Omar Manning as the two potential breakout guys, which the amount of talk out of Husker camp overall from Husker media about these two guys has been extensive on the air. So those are kind of like the obvious breakout candidates that everybody expects. Obviously, Samori Toure is a transfer from Montana. Omar Manning was a 4-star JUCO transfer last year, but basically didn't see the field at all. He only got a handful of snaps because of a lot of different issues, health issues, COVID things, and then apparently some other off the field things that the coaches don't mention much. But as a whole, both these guys have a ton of intangibles to make big time plays. And I guess real quick, Caleb, which guy are you more excited about if you had to choose between those two?
I would definitely say Omar. I definitely think he'd have the. I think he might have the more.
There's been a lot of hype.
I think he'll have more yards and touchdowns than Toure. That'd be my prediction at the end of the season.
Is that just because of difference in talent, or is that a difference in talent, or is that a difference in the roles? Because obviously Omar is going to be an outside guy, Toure is going to be an inside guy playing basically exclusively slot for us probably this year. So
yeah, which is interesting because he was really an outside. He was a deep threat too.
Right.
I don't know. It's hard for me to see him transferring well. His one game where he did play Oregon last year, it was his worst game of the season.
My argument would be to counter that he didn't play well against Oregon, and the questions with the separation in against Power 5 teams. But again, he was playing outside, and so you're seeing that press coverage on the outside against big time teams. So now you're going to move inside. You get more creative with getting him the ball underneath, and obviously you're creating more space from the slot inherently already. So that's where I'd counter, or maybe he could be an elite Power 5 slot receiver, but maybe it doesn't translate as effectively on the outside for him against those Power 5s like it did last year.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that just Omar being the bigger body, and maybe just maybe not as fast, but I just think that maybe just a bigger catch radius just because of his body size and type. I'd lean toward him being the breakout.
Oh yeah, when you're 6'4" with that lean of a body and can go up and get those balls like we hope he can. That's what gets really exciting for Omar.
And we've seen Adrian's problem with smaller receivers, even though he is only 6'1", but even
that's fair.
still,
that's fair. So I guess we'll kind of talk about them in comparison to some of the other guys as well. So one guy that both Caleb and I are extremely excited to talk about, and both of us think we really believe in this player, and there's a lot of different reasons, and the hype's continued to build, and it seems like we're getting to a point right now where we haven't named the starter or the real contributors yet in the backfield for Nebraska. So there's a lot of potential names. You know, we've heard all of the names, but whether it's Marquise Stepp, Jacquez Yant, Marvin Scott, Sevion Morrison, or our favorite of the bunch, Gabe Ervin. He looked incredible in the spring game. He was really productive in high school, and he graded in high school incredibly, like, athletically, and that's something that gets really, really interesting as well. And even before we even knew how athletic he was, just in the spring game alone, both of us were like, wait a second, Gabe Ervin looked like the most athletic player on the offensive side of the ball. And then you go and find out that he actually trackingfootball.com does a lot of like recruiting, tracking, and tracks players coming out into college. And he was in the 92nd percentile in athletic index score on their website. And he had a 4.6 score out of 5. And like in comparison, a guy like Ramir Johnson, who was like a premier track athlete in high school and finished, I think, second in state in New Jersey in track in the 100 meter, like he only had an athletic score of 3.6. So Gabe Ervin really scored out high there, having this whole offseason now to kind of show up and develop. And the hype now about some of these guys from camp is legit. And Frost at Media Day was asked, like, all right, where's the running back stat? Like, what are you guys looking for? And he was like, you know, and specifically asked, like, so you guys are going to have a committee, right? I mean, you have so many guys, you're going to have a committee. And Frost was like, no, we'd way much prefer having one or two guys really be the guys for us instead of doing like a full-on committee approach. I thought was really interesting. And then JoJo Domann specifically was asked, so what guys are standing out to you? And this was like just this week. And he was like, what guys are standing out to you? And he was like, you know, yeah, like all the guys are really talented. Omar Manning, Xavier Betts, Torre, and Gabe Ervin really showing up for us. And so
it feels like he's a de facto starter at this point.
It feels like he's the starter. It does. And all the coaches are talking him up and doing a lot of those things.
And he's healthy. And like,
I'm excited.
People were, really leaning towards Stepp, but I'd say, the best of ability, especially for a running back, is availability. And the fact that he's healthy, he's training, he's got the reps. This is, new for both of them. And that's just getting him ahead in the race for the starting running back position. And it definitely feels like, and we've been seeing him in the highlight videos that Nebraska pops out every day. And he wears 22. And funny enough, I was kind of thinking of him kind of like Rex Burkhead, just in not so much in his run style per se, but just in his story of already being like a pretty big high school football star just coming out of the gate. I mean, he won 6A state champs in Georgia. He had over 1,000 yards. He had 40 carries for 333 yards and 5 touchdowns just in the playoffs. And that's, Georgia football too. So that's pretty impressive. Rex was in Texas.
We don't know officially who the starter is going to be when we're recording this. So if you had to predict right now, Caleb, would you say that you think Ervin is going to be the starter? Yeah. Because I think that would surprise a lot of people because, I mean, Stepp obviously coming in has got a lot of hype. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Marvin Scott yet, who had the most carries from last year of all these guys. There
was a couple runs. I'll give Marvin. There was a couple like speed runs that we did do pretty well on, but I'd say the blocking was also good on those. So, I think it's Gabe Ervin, honestly. I think he's going to be the starter.
Man, I would say that Stepp still has a chance because, as he's gotten healthier and we've seen him now, Frost was talking about him recently in an interview that he was really excited about the development for Stepp as well. So I could see it being some sort of 1-2 with Stepp and Gabe Ervin, but I really think that these two guys are going to have a lot of work. And then Sevion, Yant, Scott might be all in there once in a while, but maybe not as much as a lot of us
I'd honestly say Yant has the best chance just because he's almost like fullback size.
Right, to get those like just because
2-yard
third and ones or whatever it is.
Yeah. 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. But even that, I say that we're probably just gonna run it with Martinez anyway.
Fair.
So it's kind of an interesting situation there.
Yeah,
not that he hasn't been impressive, but
again, Sevion's also interesting because we didn't see him basically at all last year, and we only saw him in a spring game. So there's still some untapped potential with Sevion, but I mean, I don't know. Irvin seems to have that smoke, and I think there's some fire there where the smoke is with Irvin and what he could potentially do this season. If he doesn't start off the rip, I think by middle of the year, we could be seeing a lot of him on the field. I'm excited about him for sure. So other guys offensively, other receivers that we want to talk about for sure. I mean, Xavier Betts is really, really interesting. Caleb, what do you have to say about Xavier?
Yeah, I mean, I was really, really excited for those rookies coming in last year. I think most for Betts, just because he is from Nebraska, we did get to see him in high school play. He was a 4-star. I mean, it was exciting just to land that recruit. We really didn't get to see enough. He played a lot of snaps. We just didn't get him the ball enough. It felt like he only had 12 catches for 131 yards, and 45 of those being the awesome sweep play against Penn State.
Yeah, the little shuttle pass,
yeah, just the great. Oh man, that was so exciting. At least he got to showcase his speed on how fast Xavier Betts is, and it was all that was it chalked up to be. And it really feels like we didn't use him after that. We didn't go back to that play with Xavier Betts. We didn't use him on end arounds anymore. And it was really sad because that was Penn State. That was pretty early in the season, and we never saw it again.
Yeah, his usage his snap count improved and got a little bit better by the end of the year where he's playing more snaps at the end. So this is where I get excited about the other guy we want to talk about was Alante Brown. So these two, both who were true freshmen last year, who played at least significant amount, 81 snaps for Alante Brown, 133 snaps for Xavier. And again, last year was a COVID offseason. Any of those freshmen from last year, I get really excited about heading into this year, or any of the younger guys really, where we could see those big steps forward into making massive plays this year. And I think Betts has all of the athletic build, the production last season, some of those flashes, the big plays, to really have an interesting year this year. And Betts is a guy I'm just really, really excited about.
Man, I want to see him do well. Just him being from Nebraska. I mean, I think it'd do great for our, in-state and close local recruiting too. If we can have a 4-star guy do great, oh man, that'll make me more excited.
And then Alante Brown, again, he showed some flashes of athleticism for sure in the kick return game, and he's probably going to be our starting kick returner this year, at least from what it seemed like. And like I said, he had 81 snaps last year, and he had a few moments, not much production, obviously. And so he's a guy that I'm interested to see exactly how that athleticism translates to production this year. Where can he be the DeMornay Pearsonell and just be an athletic, big time play guy for us on special teams, or can it translate to then even the receiving production and doing a lot of work there? Because the question is really for the offensive side is how many 12 personnel sets are we going to have? How often are we going to have 2 tight ends on the field versus having 3 wide receivers on the field? And so maybe there's not even going to be that much opportunity for guys like Xavier or Alante this year, and that's kind of going to be the debate. Because the 2 other guys that, of course, we want to talk about would be Travis Vokalek and Austin Allen, our tight ends.
It's funny to call them breakouts because I think they both really shined last year.
They played a lot of snaps last year.
They did play a lot of snaps. At times, they were really great at blocking. Obviously, Austin Allen had that fantastic catch. And Travis Vokalek had some good catches as well. So it is interesting. Do we call them breakouts? Probably Travis Vokalek more than Austin Allen.
Just because of name recognition.
Yeah. He had 16 catches for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, that's nothing, especially when our team wasn't, putting tons of touchdowns in the end zone there last year, especially through the air. So, he has a great frame, big body, and I'm excited. I think
I think we're both more excited about Austin Allen, though, for sure, right?
Yeah, I think he's got a little bit more speed.
Downfield upside.
But maybe Vokalek's a little bit better at sealing the edge.
I can see that.
But I do think they both still really need to improve in the blocking. Well, they gave a lot of effort sometimes. I agree. That missed the assignment or and stuff like that. It felt like so. But yeah, I'm really excited for our tight ends moving forward. I mean, it felt like we hadn't had life in the tight ends like in Nebraska for 5 years.
Exactly.
Under Mike Riley, it was it just disappeared. And even first year Frost. Last year was the first time in a while that was Kyler Reed, I think, had his amazing season as a sophomore. I think, was that what it was?
Yeah.
Was that like the best tight end season?
For a while. Because I mean, I know we did our all team
like,
of the 2010s, and we were like, wow, there isn't very many options here for tight end. So
yeah,
I mean, Austin Allen might already be the best one. You know, like that's saying something. So we'll have to see. Obviously, a lot of these guys breakout depends on how well Adrian Martinez plays, which is a whole nother topic. But yeah, you guys can check out our videos about Nebraska's our predictions for Nebraska's full season. If you haven't already, check out our video on Adrian Martinez and breaking him down his strengths and weaknesses as a player heading into this year. And we'll be putting out a few more videos heading into this season as well. So be on the lookout. We're hoping to do a Big Ten video, maybe a video directly about Scott Frost and expectations for the season potentially, and some other videos head down the line as well. So if you guys enjoyed this one, drop all your comments down below. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say, and maybe some other
breaking
guys,
out.
Right, some other guys. I mean, obviously, maybe we'll throw out some other names real quick, like, you know, Blaze Gunnarsson, Miles Farmer, Garrett Nelson, maybe still be a breakout, you could say. Caleb Tanner, Isaac Gifford's interesting, using him in like a specialist type nickel role. Braxton Clark and Quentin Newsome as well will both be maybe potentially first time players. We'll see a lot of time. And Will Nixon, I think, is an interesting guy as well. So
Can Cam Jurgens be a breakout player?
I mean, maybe. I guess. You know, anyone can always elevate themselves to all Big Ten player, and then suddenly they're a breakout. So we'll see.
That's fair.
But
that's fair.
We'll see. So again, drop all your comments down below and leave all your comments. We like to hear what you guys have to say, and we appreciate you guys tuning in. So if you guys enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe, share the video if you guys really enjoyed it. But as always, guys, I'm your boy, Josh. And to my right is Caleb. And guys, this has been Backseat Sports, and we will see you next time. We out.